Washington, D.C. is the home of many famous landmarks, as well as monuments and memorials, which tell the nation's rich history. In this video, I'm going to talk about two of the most significant landmarks in the United States, the White House and the U.S. Capitol. Our first president, George Washington, selected the site for the White House in 1791. He stated, "I do hereby declare and make known that the location of the district of 10 miles square shall be found by running 4 lines of experiment, beginning the first of the said 4 lines at the point of the Huntington Creek, southwest half a mile from the Alexandria Courthouse, and then due southeast to the creek. Then beginning the first line due northeast 10 miles, thence the second into Maryland due northeast 10 miles, thence the third line due southeast 10 miles, and thence the fourth line due southwest 10 miles, to the beginning of the Hunting Creek. And the said 4 lines being so run, I do hereby declare that all that part within the said 4 lines is now fixed upon, and directed to be surveyed, defined, limited, and located, for the permanent seat of the government of the United States." The following year, the cornerstone was laid, and the design submitted by Irish-born architect James Hoban was chosen. After 8 years of construction, President John Adams and his wife Abigail moved into the still unfinished residence. During the War of 1812, the British set fire to the president's house, and James Hoban was appointed to rebuild it. Various proposals were put forward during the late 19th century to significantly expand the president's house or to build an entirely new residence, but these plans were never realized. In 1902, President Theodore Roosevelt began a major renovation of the White House, including the relocation of the president's offices from the second floor of the residence to the newly constructed temporary executive office building, now known as the West Wing. Less than 50 years after the Roosevelt renovation, the White House was already showing signs of serious structural weakness. President Harry Truman began a renovation of the building in which everything but the outer walls was dismantled. The reconstruction was overseen by architect Lorenzo Winslow, and in 1952, the Truman family moved back into the White House. Every president since John Adams has occupied the White House, and the history of this building extends far beyond the construction of its walls. From the ground floor corridor rooms, transformed from their early use as service areas, to the state floor rooms, where countless leaders and dignitaries have been entertained, the White House is both the home of the President of the United States and his or her family, and a living museum of American history. There are 132 rooms, 35 bathrooms, and 6 levels in the residence. There are also 412 doors, 147 windows, 28 fireplaces, 8 staircases, and 3 elevators. The White House kitchen is able to serve dinner to as many as 140 guests and appetizers to more than 1,000. The White House requires 570 gallons of paint to cover its outside surface. At various times in history, the White House has been known as the President's Place, the President's House, and the Executive Mansion. President Theodore Roosevelt officially gave the White House its current name in 1901. The White House remains a place where history continues to unfold. The history of the United States Capitol building begins in 1793. Since then, the U.S. Capitol has been built, burned, rebuilt, extended, and restored. The Capitol that we see today is the result of several major periods of construction. It stands as a monument to the ingenuity, determination, and skill of the American people. In accordance with the Residence Act, passed by Congress in 1790, President George Washington selected the area that is now the District of Columbia from land ceded by Maryland. He also selected 3 commissioners to survey the site and oversee the design and construction of the capital city and its government buildings. The commissioners in turn hired the French engineer Pierre-Charles L'Enfant to plan the new city of Washington. He located the capital at the elevated east end of the mall, on the brow of what was then called Jenkins Hill. The site was, in L'Enfant's words, a pedestal waiting for a monument. L'Enfant was expected to design the U.S. Capitol building and to supervise its construction. However, he refused to produce any drawings for the building, claiming that he carried the design in his head. This fact and his refusal to consider himself subject to the commissioner's authority led to his dismissal in 1792. In March of that year, the commissioners announced a competition suggested by Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson that would award $500 and the city lot to whoever produced the most approved plan for the U.S. Capitol building by mid-July. None of the 17 plans submitted, however, were wholly satisfactory. In October, a letter arrived from Dr. William Thornton, a Scottish-trained physician living in Tortola, British West Indies, requesting an opportunity to present a plan even though the competition had closed. The commissioners granted this request. Thornton's plan depicted a building composed of 3 sections. The central section, which was topped by a low dome, was to be flanked on the north and south by 2 rectangular wings, one for the Senate and one for the House of Representatives. As stated in the Constitution of the United States, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and House of Representatives. In Section 2, it states that the House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every second year by the people of the several states, and the electors in each state shall have the qualification requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislature. In Section 3, it states that the Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, chosen by the legislature thereof for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. Thereby, according to the Constitution, there are a total of 535 members of Congress, of which 100 serve in the U.S. Senate and 435 serve in the U.S. House of Representatives. President Washington commended the plan for its grandeur, simplicity, and convenience, and on April 5, 1793, it was accepted by the commissioners. Washington gave his formal approval on July 25. A neoclassical style building, the Capitol is constructed of white marble, except for the center part of the west front, which is Virginia sandstone painted white. The Iron Dome, also white, is surmounted by a statue of a woman representing freedom by the American sculptor Thomas Crawford. Important parts of the Capitol include the Rotunda, directly under the dome, the Senate chamber in the north wing, the House chamber in the south wing, the National Statuary Hall, housing statues of famous Americans from every state, and the President's Room. Until 1935, the U.S. Supreme Court met in the old Senate chamber, which was located in the original north wing.